break ground not just physically, but in policy, innovation, and also in inclusiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker this afternoon, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you, Bishop Dwayne Burbick, for mastering our ceremony, and also Bishop William B. Hutchinson. Now I pause at that because I too have a Hutchinson literally in my government, J.C. Hutchinson. And when I saw the name, I was wondering if it was J.C. Thank you for the invocation. The Honorable Colonel Charles Jr., Minister of Labour and Social Security and Member of Parliament for the great constituency of Clarendon Southeast. His Worship, the Mayor, Councillor Joel Williams, Mayor of Maypen, and other members of the Clarendon Municipal Corporation in attendance. Mr. Linville Freeman, Chairman of the NHT, and other members and members of the executive staff, members of the board and executive staff who are here. Mr. Colin Coke, Councillor for the Mineralites Division. Mr. Donald Moore, Technical Director, and other NHD team members. I think that's Donald. They just can't do without you, I see. No, Donald, you know, I have to give Donald his due and his respect. You would call Donald, or you would say, no, he's like, you know, a part of the foundation of the NHT, someone who has contributed significantly and to whom the country owes a debt of gratitude. Good to see you here, Donald. Let me acknowledge our construction partner, Gore Developments, and Mr. Chris Gore and his team. The government can't execute its construction, can't execute its housing policy without contractors. There is a notion in the minds of the public when we say that the government builds the houses, they believe that literally it's the government that builds the houses. No, the government hires contractors to do this. And so oftentimes the ability of the government to execute its policy is really dependent on the quality of the contractor, the capability of the contractor. And Gore Development has a proven track record. They have been building houses privately for themselves and the private housing market for decades. They have a brand in the market, people know them, and most importantly now, they have a reputation to defend. So I am expecting that the houses that they build for the NHT will meet and surpass the houses that they build privately for themselves and their client, both in terms of quality and time to delivery. So we welcome you as part of the NHT's contracting family. Other representatives and stakeholders who are here, allow me as well to acknowledge the wonderful performance of the head girl of the Dembe High School. You had me swaying and singing and humming. Excellent performance. It is obviously, looks like to be a hobby for you, but who knows, maybe that's where your professional career will lead. you certainly have the talent to excel and exceed in this area. Keep up the good work. Representatives of the media, and of course, members of the community and potential homeowners who are here and listening to us. Nowadays, I can't just speak to the audience in front of me. I'm certain that there is somebody here streaming live. See what I mean? I'm certain that this is going to be broadcast, and therefore, let me say big up to the people who are following us live on TikTok, on Facebook, and Instagram, and YouTube, and all over. Thank you for joining us. Today is a big day, and like someone said a few days ago, it's a big deal. Not small fries. So it's truly a pleasure to be here in Longville Park, Clarendon, today to break ground on what will become one of the most significant housing development in the history of the National Housing Trust, not just in the parish, but across Jamaica. This afternoon, we mark the commencement of the Longville Meadows development, a bold strategic investment in housing, in infrastructure, and most importantly, in the dignity and the future of the Jamaican people. When completed, this development will deliver 2,064 new housing units to Jamaican families through a robust partnership between the National Housing Trust and Gore Development Limited under a modified guaranteed purchase program. What we are doing here today is turning a new page for thousands of families who will soon have a safe, secure, and modern place to call home. We are also reaffirming our government's unwavering commitment to providing affordable housing opportunities and to drive structured and sustainable development across Jamaica. Let us reflect for a moment on what this means in practical terms. 692 two-bedroom units and 1,372 one-bedroom units, carefully planned and designed to meet the growing housing demand. These homes will be supported by a full suite of critical infrastructure, proper roads with traffic signage, potable water system, a reliable electrical grid, stormwater drainage system, and a centralized sewage treatment facility. Beyond building homes, we are building an entire community. Importantly, this development will include green spaces and recreational facilities, which are essential components in promoting healthy lifestyles, environmental sustainability, and social cohesion. These amenities are part of our deliberate planning to ensure that Jamaicans live not just in shelters, but in communities of pride and purpose. Boy, I would have clapped for that. I understand, sometimes these things sound too good to be true, and so you reserve the clap until we actually have the opening. Don't have no fear. This will be done. This is the kind of development Jamaica needs more of. Not informal, not unplanned, not underserved. To put it another way, not chaka-chaka development. but structured, regulated, and dignified development. Longville Meadows represents a forward-looking model that aligns with our vision of orderly urbanization and balanced regional development. The modified guaranteed purchase program that supports this project is a testament to the government's commitment to innovation in the housing sector. Under this modified GPP, both the NHD and Gore developments have pooled their land resources to ensure a larger, more efficient development. This level of collaboration demonstrates what we can achieve when public and private sector work together towards a shared national goal. And so I again commend Gore Homes on the partnership with the government of Jamaica and the NHD. Now, for those who may not be aware, the NHD's journey in Clarendon began in 1977 with Ashley Hall, as the chairman of the NHD pointed out. Since then, the NHD has delivered 9,000 housing solutions in this parish. Including the iconic phases of Longville, Mineralites, and Money Musk. Today's groundbreaking continues this proud tradition of delivering for the people of Clarendon. And the commitment does not stop there. Over the next decade, the NHD plans to provide an additional 9,000 housing solutions across the parish, including Longville 4, Shekels 2, and Hummingbird Meadows Phase 2. Every home we build takes a family out of uncertainty and into stability. Every home we build moves a family from poverty to prosperity. It is no accident that this groundbreaking is taking place here in Clarendon. With its strategic location between Kingston and Mandeville and its growing population and commercial activity, Clarendon is ripe for structured development. Through this project and others, we are making sure that Clarendon becomes a magnet for new investment and a model for sustainable growth. But as we grow our housing stock, we must also increase the efficiency of our public bureaucracy. Housing development does not take place in a vacuum. It requires coordination across ministries, agencies, local authorities, and regulators. And that is why we continue to modernize permitting systems, digitize land titling processes, and streamline approvals. I want you to reflect for a moment. Tell me one informal community that has been tacitly supported or promoted in the last 9 years of this administration. I give you a moment to think about it. Yesterday and the day before, as I move across Jamaica, I visited a community in St. Mary called Industry Pen. Anybody ever heard of Industry Pen? Industry Pen was a community, one would think that it is formally settled, but not really. It's a community that lands were given under Operation Pride. No titles, no road, no water, no sewage. a very large community. The NHT, I gave the directive, the NHT will have to spend somewhere in the region of about just over $3.5 billion to regularize that community. I want all Jamaicans to think on that. If you are a Jamaican that is interested in how your country is changing, what has changed in your country, and you want to see more change, sometimes you don't really reflect on the facts. And my job is to bring these facts to you. It may confront and upset your frame of thought, your perceptions. But what we know is that you can't argue with the facts. And this administration, this government that I administer on your behalf, took a decision which could largely be unpopular, that we will no longer tacitly support or promote informality, informal, unplanned, unregulated development. So what has changed in Jamaica is that there is no longer a politician who will wink or secretly and privately support people moving onto land to settle it informally. And then 20 years after, meet me and say, Prime Minister, I live here for 14 years and I don't have any water. This government has changed chaka-chaka development. And that is good for the future of Jamaica. And for those persons who were encouraged into chaka-chaka development, who have built wonderful houses. If you go to Industry Pen and you see the houses there, I went there and I met with the Citizens Association there. The people were frustrated. They built wonderful houses. They don't have sewer. They don't have road to get there. They don't have reliable water. They can't go to the bank to realize the value in their house. This administration will have to take up now $3.5 billion to fix that problem. No doubt the politicians who did it may have had good intention, but you know what they say of where is paved with good intentions. If we really want to change Jamaica, then we must put the plans and policies in place that will make the change in the right way. So Jamaica has had 10 years, 9 years, almost 10, where the government has not promoted informal settlements. And we have supported people to get their homes. And I want to give you some further facts, because I think it is important in the public debate that we are all seized of the facts, because we are in the promising season and quite a bit will be promised, and the public may not have the full knowledge to analyze some of these promises. So when it comes to housing, there are two sets of policies that any government will have to follow. And you can break the policies into two streams. The first stream is called demand-side policies. And essentially, demand-side policies are designed to do one thing: create effective demand. What is effective demand? Everybody here wants a house. Everybody. how many persons can actually qualify to purchase. So those persons who qualify to purchase, they are considered to be effective demanders of housing. So what government wants to do with its policies is to create effective demand. Now, demand policies, when you're creating effective demand, you also want to create equity, meaning fairness. Because some people already have the ability, the wherewithal to purchase. So where should you focus government's effort? On supporting those persons who don't have the wherewithal, the ability. So you want to make your subsidies contingent on someone's income and contingent on need. All right. So the government of Jamaica has done quite a bit to create effective demand. When we give 0% interest to a certain income band earning minimum wage or less, that is what you call a demand side policy to increase the ability of persons to actually afford the home. That creates effective demand. So if before you had to go to the bank by itself and you were getting 7, 8, 9, 10%, now 0%, you are better able to afford your home. When we increase the co-making, how much is it now, Martin? We moved it from 7.5 million. It is now 9 million. And we do that right across the board for everybody. That creates effective demand. When we say, all right, it's not just 2 persons can co-make, now 3. What does that do? Creates more effective demand, bring more people to effectively purchase housing. When we say, all right, we bring in the intergenerational mortgage, that adds more people to the pool of persons who can actually purchase homes. When we reduce the various fees and commissions, that adds more people to the pool. Almost every year in Parliament, I announce measures that will improve the supply side. We do have some special subsidies that are targeted based upon income and need. So you would have heard about the new social housing program, where the beneficiaries get almost an 80% subsidy on their house because they have to bring the land, and the land is usually anywhere from 20 to 15% of the value of the total house. But we also, in the NHT, give subsidy to disabled persons. We literally have what they call housing benefit orders, where in every scheme, we make special provision for disabled persons, special provision for public sector workers, special provision for young people in every NHT scheme. Literally between 10 and 20% of every scheme is reserved for special housing benefits. Then we give special housing grants to persons whose income are below a certain earning capabilities. Persons can get a grant of up to $3 million. But let's look at some other potential demand side policies. What do you feel about a policy which says, if you are a young person, we will give you, and I don't remember the category, it is from 18 to 29, I don't remember, 34 or whatever the age group is. We will give you a grant of 500,000 towards a deposit on your home. How do you, that sounds good. But think about it. What about the person now who has been working for many years, 40 years old, don't own a house? What should we do for them? What should we do about the person who is 50 now, close to retirement? Shouldn't we do something for them as well? All right, so let me ask you a question. Would we be able to give all the young persons in the society, even if they are able to afford it? So you're going to have to put in place some kind of system to determine who should get it. Is that what you're going to do? What I'm saying is that there are policies that sound good, but in their implementation, what they do is to exacerbate, make worse inequalities that exist in the society. So you might feel, boy, this is in my favor. But what about the others? So what we as a government try to do, if you can't do it for all, then you have to do it for those people who everyone in the society agrees should get it. Otherwise, you would have reduced the welfare of everyone. So when we make policy, if we're going to make any change in policy, the policy must make at least one person better without making anyone else worse off. That is the hallmark of good policy. So when a politician comes to you with a policy that sounds good, you have to ask yourself, who will be better off, but will it make any other group worse off? So I want you to think about the housing proposals that are being put to you on the demand side of the equation. Now, no matter what you do on the demand side, you cannot solve the problem if there is a shortage. So you could have promised to give everybody a $5,000, a $500,000 deposit on a house. If there is no house for them to buy, all you would have succeeded to do is to drive up the price of the house. What you have not heard is what is the policy to build more houses. The only place that you hear that policy is right here. The build more housing don't sound so sexy. But no matter what you promise to give in terms of reduction in mortgage, grants, free house, if the house is not there, you can't give it. So let's talk about building houses, which is the supply side of the equation. So you notice by government, we are doing on the demand side, and we are doing it in such a way to make people better and no one worse off. So let's examine what we are doing on the supply side. Today is a perfect example of our achievements on the supply side. 2,064 units will be added to the supply of housing. We can take some of that and give to young people, old people, disabled, persons with low income. You can do all kinds of things. In fact, if you solve the supply problem, then the demand side becomes less of a constraint. And that's what we have to focus on. We have to focus on building more houses that are affordable. That's what we have to do. So if you ask me, where should we focus resources? We should focus the resources on building the houses and making them more affordable. Why have we failed as a country in terms of our spatial development? We have failed because previous governments did not want to take on the heavy lifting or could not afford to take on the heavy lifting of moving ahead of the demand for housing. So it's easy to say, see the land there, go and go settle it. And then later when we have the money, we sort out your problem. That's the description of previous policies. Today, we have insisted that the consequence of that, informality, criminality, environmental degradation, inefficiency, and lack of productivity, which that causes, we cannot continue with that in the future. So we are going to invest in building communities. But I also want to make another distinction with how we build. None of the housing that we have built have been built by any form of borrowing. None. I hear somebody say, oh, you built one house, little bit of house. We built 10,000 houses under the San Jose Accord. Debt. Borrowing. Well, let me tell you what we have built without borrowing. Over the last 9 years, from 2017 to 2025, we took out 2016. Don't want any contention over data, right? Even though most of 2016 would be this administration, but leave that out. We have started in total 29,681 units. If we included 2016, it would have been 31,540. But we take that out and give it to the other administration. On average, this means that we would have 3,298 housing starts per year in this administration, compared to the previous 9 years, which would be 4 years under the Portia Simpson-led administration and another 4.5 years or so under the Bruce Golding-led administration. So from 2008 to 2016, those two administrations would have started 18,939 housing units, or on average, 2,104 housing starts. So to put that in perspective, on average under this administration, we have 57% more housing starts than if you were to take the previous 9 years. And housing starts is the basic measure of how a country is performing. And these housing starts is not for everything. These are just housing starts under the NHD. Under the NHD. Well, let's look at how much money we spend on housing under the NHD. Over these past 9 years of your government under my administration, the NHD has spent $325.2 billion on housing, approximately $36.1 billion on average yearly, compared to the previous 9 or so years from 2008 to 2016, when the total expenditure was $181.55 billion, an average of $20.2 billion per year. Effectively, we have increased expenditure on housing by 79%. And you might see a difference in the percentages. One is inflation. Housing costs have increased significantly on average. But more than that, we are now building housing schemes to a higher standard. All our schemes have to have some form of recreational facility. We build them with proper roads and sewage systems. And generally, we have upgraded the quality of the construction. When you look at our homes compared to previously, they're really nicer homes. So let me give you a sense as to where we are with housing. So currently, the NHD has 8,353 housing units under construction. 8,353. Under contract, meaning that we are now signing off with the contractor to do the actual construction. And what does it mean? It's not just signing the contract. The contractor has to provide a construction bond and certain undertakings. They have to mobilize and say, I am ready. So that is the contract process. So look at this project. This project, before today, would have been in the pool of under contract. So that would have been in the 7,692 housing solutions that are under contract. As of today, they would have moved into under construction. So they would have moved out of the category under contract to now under construction. We have 12,207 units which are under procurement. What does procurement mean? We don't just call up a contractor and say, my friend, come and build this housing scheme for me. No. It is put out to a public tender and the contractors compete for it, and that has a process. That process can take anywhere from 6 months if it goes smoothly and there's no problem, to as long as 18 months, even longer sometimes. So we have 12,207 units under procurement. So this project would have moved from procurement to contracting, and now it is going to move into the column of under construction. We have 10,598 units that are in planning and design. So some of the houses that I said we are going to build here in Clarendon in the future, they are in planning and design. So there is a sense that the NHD just gets up and builds. No. The NHD has to go first. After it has found the land, it has to do a land survey. Then we have to do a check to ensure that we can actually build on the land. We have to ensure that nobody else has any claim on the land. We have to make sure that people who are on the land, we can properly move them, relocate them. Then after you finish that, you have to ensure that you do an environmental impact to make sure that the house that you're building is not going to damage the environment. Then you have to assess that the land can actually build houses on. I have seen too many projects where, because we want the houses so bad, we say, yes, we can build. And when they break ground, it's rock. Then they come back and say, boy, you know, we have to blast all this rock. And so what we had projected, that can't work because of the site and these issues. So we have to make sure that we do all the preparatory work, and that is what is planning and design. And that, believe me, can take years to do the studies, the surveys, the negotiation with the landowners and people who reside on it. So we have 10,598 units in planning and design, and hopefully those will move from planning and design into procurement. And then there are about 2,000 or so units of people who just walk into the NHD and say, I want to build an own land home or a home improvement loan or something of that sort that we, on a daily basis, fund. If you put all of that together, the NHD has a portfolio of 40,650 units around there that is streamlined to go. So when you talk about supply chain, this is the supply chain for housing. So Jamaicans can rest assured that the NHD has enough housing programs to push through. Now, housing completions might be slower because it takes time to build. So what you really want to measure would be the housing starts. And this is the supply chain of housing starts. Because the houses you start are likely to be completed 99% of the time. So the commitment that I gave the people of Jamaica is that we will build 75,000 housing units. Martin is reminding me that it is 70,000. But, every time I take the bike, I increase it a little bit. 70,000 housing units. The last study we have suggests that there is a shortfall in housing supply because the demand is somewhere in the region of 150,000 houses. Why so many houses? Because you have to get ahead of the demand curve so that people don't say, boy, I can't get a house, let me go and informally occupy or settle a piece of land. So you want your housing market to be ahead of people's demand for housing. And that is what we are trying to do, which is why you don't hear under our government any new informal schemes popping up. We don't promote it, but we are giving citizens the opportunity to get a house formally and legally. And that is what everybody really wants. That is what we really want. So it might not sound sexy, it might not sound, dramatic, but I have to take the time to explain to the people of Jamaica. Be careful of people who come to you to say that they have horses that can fly. So the NHD's directive is that they must build 43,000 houses out of that 70,000. And at 40,065, they are well on their way. So they need to tell me where the other 2,000 are coming from, which I hope by another couple of months you will tell me that you've met the commitment. The HAJ, they have committed to deliver 14,000 housing units. At another time, I will say where they are with that. And you would have heard about Bernard Lodge, which will deliver almost 10 to 15,000 housing solutions, and that is well underway. I don't know how many of you have gone to visit Bernard Lodge, but some beautiful houses are being built in that development. So right across Jamaica, we are doing these housing developments, and we will meet our commitment for 70,000 houses, which will significantly increase the supply of housing. So once we have the supply, then we can talk about how we're going to improve and create the demand for it. But don't talk about the demand until you sort out the supply. And that is what this administration has been doing in a strategic way. Now, for those who are new to the game, I can see some of the comments. Oh, it's just because of election. And I would remind those persons, and I see many persons here smiling, because almost every month I am breaking ground. Almost every month I am breaking ground on a housing scheme. In May and in April, I was breaking ground in Manchester with a housing scheme. Then I went to St. James on another housing scheme. In short order, I'm going back to St. Mary. And we have others to do. Why? Because I have a supply chain of housing. Yeah. And that's what you want. You want your government not to just rush and do one scheme, because we couldn't rush and do this. You see how many steps we have to go through? So it means that your government that I administer, I have been burning the midnight oil 3, 4, 5 years before, planning and moving these schemes through the various process for today. And after today, we will still have more housing schemes to break ground for. And after the election, we'll still have more housing schemes to break ground for. Yes, I know what I say really confronts how some people feel, but it's the truth. Cannot be assailed. These are the facts. Do with them what you will. But when you have the facts, I urge you to choose Jamaica. God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Holness, for your presentation. Indeed, every home we build moves a family from uncertainty to stability. And changing Jamaica requires plans, it requires policies, demand-side policies that create the environment, and supply-side policies that provides the product. And your breakdown of the NHT's housing program, over 40,000 housing solutions at different stages of planning and development. Thank you again, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, as we invite you now to get robed for the groundbreaking ceremony, and the persons participating in the ceremony, as I call your name, please step forward. So our dedicated team of ushers, thank you ushers for your service every ceremony. They will have you properly prepared. Dr. Holness, Minister Charles, Mr. Freeman, our Managing Director, Mr. Martin Miller, and our team from Gore Developments Limited, Mr. Christopher Gore, and of course, Mr. Otti as well. And I ask the members of the audience to please remain seated. The groundbreaking exercise will take place to my left. And as we direct our attention to the groundbreaking site, I want to see a big